I thought I had it all. A relationship that seemed perfect, a love that everyone envied. Every Sunday, we would walk in the park, hand in hand, smiling at the world as if it belonged only to us. I remember the way the sunlight would fall on his face, making his eyes glow, the sound of his laugh echoing between the trees. It felt like happiness, like safety. But happiness, I learned, isn't always permanent. It can be fragile, hidden in plain sight, waiting for something or someone to change everything. I never thought I'd notice her. She was just there, sitting on a bench nearby, reading, completely unaware of the world around her. Something about the way she smiled softly at her book made my chest tighten. I tried to shake it off, telling myself it was nothing. My heart was with him. My mind was with him. Yet, there was a small, curious pull toward her, a quiet intrigue I couldn't explain. We continued our routine, laughing at inside jokes, feeding ducks, watching children play. But with every step, I couldn't ignore the subtle awareness of her presence. She wasn't loud, she wasn't demanding attention, but somehow, she existed in the edges of my vision like a shadow that refused to leave. Then it happened. A small, accidental touch. Our hands brushed, hers and mine, and for a split second, the world stilled. I felt something I hadn't felt in years. A spark. A jolt. A quiet awakening of a part of me I thought I had buried forever. I pulled back, my heart racing. Confusion swirled inside me. I was with him, yet something in me shifted. I didn't understand it. I didn't want to. But the seed had been planted. That fleeting touch had changed everything. Music swells softly, then fades into a tense, curious undertone. Little did I know, that touch in the park would start a journey of questioning everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and desire. The days that followed were confusing. Every time I went back to the park, I found myself scanning the benches, hoping to see her again. I told myself it was just curiosity. Innocent. Harmless. But curiosity doesn't feel like this. This pull, it was magnetic, irresistible, and terrifying. With him, everything was comfortable, predictable. We shared memories, laughter, late-night talks. He was kind, attentive, the kind of man you settle into, the kind of love that feels safe. And yet, something in me ached for more. Something in me had woken, quietly demanding to be acknowledged. Then, one afternoon, it happened again. She was sitting under the same tree, sunlight falling through the leaves, her book open but forgotten as she watched the world with a gentle smile. I approached cautiously, trying to act natural. Our hands brushed, again. This time, it wasn't accidental. There was intention, or maybe it was fate. A current ran through me, warm and electrifying. I looked at her, really looked, and I saw something familiar in her eyes. Understanding. Curiosity. Maybe even a hint of longing. I didn't pull away this time. My fingers lingered for just a heartbeat longer, but it was enough. Enough for me to feel an unfamiliar truth. My heart, which I thought belonged entirely to him, was betraying me. I walked home that evening, hands still tingling from the contact. I felt guilty. Conflicted. But I also felt alive. And that scared me more than anything else. It wasn't just attraction, it was awakening. A recognition of a part of me I had denied, ignored, tucked away in the corners of my heart. The part of me that knew love wasn't always simple. That sometimes, the heart chooses what the mind cannot explain. I realized something then, something that would haunt me for weeks to come. I was beginning to see him differently, not with less love, but with less necessity. And her? She had become a quiet storm, stirring feelings I wasn't ready to name. It was a late afternoon, the sun dipping low, painting the park in shades of gold and amber. He was waiting for me at our usual spot, smiling as if nothing had changed. But I couldn't shake the memory of her, the warmth of her hand, the softness in her eyes, the way she made me feel seen. I found her under the big oak tree again, her presence like a quiet pull I couldn't resist. I sat down beside her, pretending it was casual, innocent. But inside, my heart was a storm, pounding in a rhythm I didn't recognize. We talked about trivial things, books, the park, the sound of birds, but beneath every word, there was a current, a silent acknowledgement of what neither of us said aloud. And then, it happened. Our hands touched again, this time fully intentional. I felt her fingers intertwine with mine. A shiver ran up my spine. I wanted to pull away, to remember that I was with him, that I loved him. But I couldn't. I didn't. Time seemed to stop. The world fell away. For the first time in my life, I realized that love isn't always about comfort or security. Sometimes, it's about fire, about the inexplicable pull toward someone who makes your heart race in ways you never knew possible. I looked into her eyes, and I saw reflection. Not just desire, but recognition, a silent understanding that we were on the edge of something forbidden and beautiful. And in that moment, I had to face the truth, I was falling. Slowly, irrevocably, into a love I hadn't expected, for a woman I didn't plan on loving. Leaving that park that evening was the hardest thing I had done. My heart was divided, my mind racing. I kept thinking about him, about what I would lose, about the life I had built. But I also couldn't ignore her, couldn't unfeel the warmth of her hand, the spark that lingered long after we parted. The days after that evening were unbearable. I saw him, and I loved him, yet everything felt different. Every laugh, every touch, every word shared with him now carried a weight I couldn't explain. I felt guilty, ashamed even, for feeling something else. I tried to push it away. Tried to remind myself of the life I had with him, the comfort, the memories, the plans we made. But her presence lingered in my mind like sunlight through the trees, impossible to ignore. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her smile, felt the warmth of her hand in mine. I knew it wasn't just attraction. It was deeper, more complex, a connection that bypassed logic, bypassed morality, and spoke directly to my heart. And the more I tried to suppress it, the louder it became. One evening, I walked alone through the park, retracing the steps where it had all begun. The oak tree, the bench where she sat, the spot where our hands had first touched, everything was etched into my memory. I could almost feel her hand brushing mine again. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. I was no longer just thinking about her, I was longing for her. My heart, which I had trusted to lead me rightly, had betrayed me. And it wasn't just a fleeting feeling, it was a storm growing stronger with every heartbeat. I didn't want to hurt him, yet I couldn't ignore the truth. I felt torn, suspended between duty and desire, between comfort and awakening. And every time I saw her again, that invisible thread tugged at me, drawing me closer despite myself. That park, once a place of innocent joy, had become a battlefield of emotions. Every step I took, every breath I drew, reminded me that my heart was no longer mine alone. It was being rewritten, reshaped, by a connection I hadn't expected and couldn't deny. It was a quiet afternoon when it happened. The park was nearly empty, the golden sunlight spilling over the benches and pathways. I found her again, sitting where she always did, her book open but forgotten as she watched the world around her. I sat down beside her, my heart pounding in a rhythm I couldn't control. Words felt heavy, impossible to form. But the moment our hands brushed once more, I knew I couldn't hide the truth anymore. Not from her. Not from myself. I can't stop thinking about you, I whispered, barely audible over the wind. Her eyes widened slightly, a gentle, understanding smile forming on her lips. There was no judgment, no shock, only recognition, as if she had been waiting for this moment too. I know, she replied softly, her hand covering mine. I've felt it too. Time seemed to pause. The world fell away, leaving only the warmth of her hand and the truth I had tried so desperately to ignore. I was happy with him. I loved him. But that love was no longer enough. Not when every heartbeat demanded more, when every glance toward her ignited something I couldn't deny. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my own choices pressing down on me. I never meant to. I didn't plan this, but my heart, it belongs to you. She didn't answer immediately. She just squeezed my hand gently, and that small gesture carried more meaning than any words ever could. In that moment, I realized that some connections aren't accidental. Some touches, some glances, some sparks, they change you forever. And this, whatever this was, couldn't be undone. I left the park that day feeling both terrified and alive. I was stepping into unknown territory, leaving behind a love that had once defined me. But for the first time in years, I felt fully seen. Fully alive. Fully ready to embrace a love that felt inevitable. The park had given me clarity, even if it came with pain. Some loves are safe. Some loves are necessary. And some are everything. The days that followed were some of the hardest I've ever lived. I knew I had to face him, to confront the life we had built together. It was terrifying, his love, so steady, so unwavering, deserved honesty. Yet I couldn't deny what my heart had already chosen. I met him in the park one last time, the place that had witnessed everything, the laughter, the love, the sparks that had changed me forever. He smiled, unsuspecting, and I felt a pang of guilt. I need to be honest with you, I began, my voice trembling. I care about you, I always will. But my heart, it's somewhere else. The hurt in his eyes cut through me, sharper than I expected. And yet, he didn't yell. He didn't rage. He nodded slowly, the understanding in his silence more painful than any words. Thank you for telling me, he said quietly. I want you to be happy. And that was it. The final thread severed, the life I had known carefully dismantled. I walked away, my chest tight, my heart heavy, but also free. I returned to the park later that evening. The sun was setting, the sky painted in pink and orange hues, and there she was waiting, as if she had always been. I didn't hesitate this time. I held her hand fully, without guilt, without fear, without reservation. In her eyes, I saw home. In her touch, I felt alive. I realized then that love isn't always about what's safe or expected. It's about what makes your soul sing, what awakens the parts of you you never knew existed. We sat there together, the world fading around us, knowing that this was only the beginning. The park had given me confusion, longing, and heartache, but it had also given me clarity. It had led me to her, to a love that was real, undeniable, and mine to embrace. Sometimes, you have to let go of the life you thought you wanted to find the life you were meant to live. And I had finally found it. In her hands, in her eyes, and in the love that I could no longer ignore.